Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about drape. First off, some adjectives. So drape, think elegant, graceful, flowy, silky, slinky, breezy, that sort of feel. Garments made out of firm fabric. Think cozy, warm, thick, rustic, durable. Now some examples. Drapey fabric. You can see it's very fluid. When I bunch it up, it makes these really nice, beautiful folds. When I drape it over my hand, it hangs almost straight down. A sweater made out of firm fabric. Here you go. You can see it's not nearly as see-through as the other one. But also, when I fold it, it doesn't have all those tiny, when I bunch it, it doesn't have all those tiny little folds. It maintains more of its own shape. It's more chunky. And when I drape it over my hand, it sort of sticks out at an angle. It doesn't have that fluidity that causes it to hang straight down like the other shirt did. So now comes the question, how do you get the drape that you want in your garment? What affects the drape? First off would be gauge. A bigger needle creates a looser gauge, and that allows more movement and more drape. A smaller needle makes a denser fabric, and that's going to have less drape. The stitch pattern that you choose. Any stitch pattern that incorporates pockets of space into the pattern itself is going to work better for creating drape. So think of like an airy lace pattern or a drop stitch pattern. Those allow a lot of movement, so they work better for creating drape. Denser pattern stitches such as cable work or a linen stitch, a seed stitch, those will work better for firm fabric because the stitch pattern itself is pretty dense and closely knit. Then you want to consider the yarn. I have here some examples. Like this wool yarn is nice and springy, nice and stretchy. This will lend itself better to a firm, thick garment. That springiness is going to fill in little pockets of air in your knitting, and that creates more of a firm, thick fabric. Here I've got, on the other hand, some bamboo yarn, and you can see when I give this a tug, it doesn't hardly stretch at all. This will lend itself much better to a drapey garment because it's just more fluid. It doesn't have that spring that's gonna absorb the movement like the wool did. And part of the consideration for yarn is also how smooth the fibers themselves are. The bamboo is very smooth and shiny, so it's gonna move more fluidly and more smoothly. The wool has more of a sticky, grabby texture to it. And so it's not going to move quite as much. It's going to have a little more friction, and that's not going to work as well for creating drape. So I'm going to close by giving you just a few tips to use. First off, wash and dry your gauge swatch because the drape of your fabric can change significantly after it's been washed and dried. Secondly, do the little stretch test like I just showed you with the yarn, and that'll give you an idea before you begin if that yarn is appropriate for the amount of drape you want in your project. Sort of a side tip to that would be plant fibers in general will be more drapey. Animal fibers in general will be more springy, less drapey. The last thing I want to touch on is hiding imperfections and using the drape or the firmness of your fabric to hide any physical things that you would want to conceal. And the way that drape applies to this is best summed up, I think, by structural integrity. And what I mean by that is this drapey garment does not have a lot of integrity. Your body and your curves are going to boss this thing around. So if you have a fabric that's really drapey and you make a garment that hugs your body, this fabric is going to follow every curve and every indent and every imperfection in your body very closely. Your body is going to shape this. So the best way to use drape to your advantage is to knit something that sits away from the body. So that way it's going to hang sort of straight down away from the skin and hide everything behind it. On the other hand, if you want to make a form-fitting garment, that's when you want to use a firm fabric, because this has a lot more integrity. This fabric is going to smooth over any indentations or bumps instead of being forced to the shape of your body as easily as that silk shirt is. So any form-fitted garment, go for a little bit of a thicker, firmer fabric so it'll kind of glide over any little bumps or indents. And I think that's all I wanted to address in terms of drape. If you have any questions or comments, put them below and I'll try to answer anything the best that I can. Thank you very much for watching.